It is time for StreetWise with former chief of the New York City Sheriff's Department, former chief of the Seagate Police Department, retired New York City detective, Time Warner Public Access Media Award, Joe Franklin Super Excellence in Broadcasting Memory Lane Award, New York Veteran Police Association StreetWise Productions, host of StreetWise, Mr. Lou Telano.
Good evening and welcome back to StreetWise. I'm going to let my guest introduce herself this evening. So just hang in there, and she will introduce herself.
Coming.
Well, I hope she is, So, well.
Hello, my friends. This is Barbara from Harlem, and I'm downtown near Trump Tower. Trump Tower is right over there. And you know what? We may see another defacing of that Black Lives Matter. Because the bottom line is all lives matter. And if you just think Black Lives Matter, then why aren't you concerned about all of those babies that are being killed? Why aren't you concerned about all of the violence we have in our communities? Children being killed, men and women being slaughtered. But Black Lives Matter, come on, we know what you're about. We know that you're Marxist. We know that you're anti-American. We know that you're anti-God. And you will not win. We will win. We will save America because we're not going to lay down and let you destroy our great country. We're not going to let you have your way. We're not going to let you destroy our families. We are not going to let you destroy capitalism. We will win. Come on, Americans. Let's let them know that they're fighting a losing battle. If they want to destroy a country, get out of America. Go, because we don't want you here. This is Barbara from Harlem at Trump Tower, and I'm ready and willing and able to stand up for my country. Don't forget to pick up a copy of my book, Escaping the Racism of Low Expectations. I'm sure you will enjoy it. But in the meantime, remember, we will win. God bless you, and God bless America. This is Barbara from Harlem. Talk to you later.
Look at that. I didn't even have to introduce her. Barbara from Harlem, I have to say, welcome to StreetWise. Now,
thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And you couldn't do it in a more appropriate place than Trump Towers.
That's true.
It was a natural. It was really a natural. By the way, you're a natural. So your great book, Escaping the Racism of Low Expectations. What does that exactly mean for the sake of the audience?
Well, for the sake of the audience, I am a registered Democrat. Black in my community equal Democrat. But my experience in going to the Democratic clubs and being a member and participating, made me really start thinking about my loyalty to the club that was so anti-American. So this book is written with God, my country, and my conscience being my guides. And with that, I changed the way I started thinking. And I became more patriotic, more in line with my Christian beliefs. And it eased my conscience because I was having a lot of trouble with my personhood. I said, I belong to a party that's told me to hate slavery, hate the slave owners who have been dead for years. And it just didn't make sense. And I was taught in church to love thy neighbors, not to hate white people for any problems that I had in my life. So this book was a result of all of my living, my experiences, and it's all true.
Wow, I have to tell you folks, talking about experience, I want to touch on in a moment about a big experience down south in Florida. She, her and her daughter went through some hell. I know because people don't know how old I am, but in 1951, believe it or not, I was on a ship and went to Beaumont, Texas. You can imagine Beaumont, Texas in 1951. I'm a Lower East Side kid, Barbara. So when I'm walking on the sidewalk and I see elderly people, black people, that could be my parents, they walked in the gutter. And I'm saying to these old timers, what's, Lou, just shut up and just keep walking, right? So I've seen it, and because there was no social media when I was a kid, very little.
Right.
If you had a radio, you're lucky if you had a television. So you heard things about it. If you're a New Yorker, which you are, I'm sure the things that you probably didn't know how bad it was in those days. How really? But,
Oh yes.
yeah.
We would go to Florida and spend time with my grandparents. And my grandmother told me, she says, if a white person is walking on the sidewalk, you get in the street. Well, I'm a New Yorker and I wasn't used to that, so I never did it.
Right.
I never even drank out of one of those fountains that said colored and white. I drank out of the white ones. And I survived by the grace of God. I even attended 1 year elementary school there in an all-black school. So I know what Jim Crow is about. In my book, I write how my mother used to take us to Florida. She used to drive. And we never went to the back of a restaurant being that we were black. My mother spoke fluent French. She was born in Georgia, but she could speak French.
Right.
And we walk in the front of a restaurant, and my mother started talking French. And the next thing you knew, they were getting us hamburgers and French fries. My mother told us, don't say a word. We were trained. We never went in the back door. We never said a word. We walked through the front door, and we were served.
Yeah.
So I experienced Jim Crow. I know what it's all about.
I know.
But still in all, America has come a long way. We are blessed to be black in this country.
Yeah.
And for people to push the race card is so unfair. You know, and I've had, and you'll see in my book, I've had a confrontation with the KKK.
I know.
But I was from New York. I was a correctional officer. And
where can I ask you that? Where were you a correction officer?
I worked at Rikers Island. And also, I was a correction officer when I moved to Florida for a few years.
Wow. Because I worked, not to interrupt you, which I am, I worked in the Truman's before I was a cop. All right, so that's another story again, you know?
And I was married to a police officer.
A
New York City police officer,
wow.
Yes.
Wow, so boy. But I want to jump back when you actually say you walked away from the Democratic Party.
I had to.
You walked it because I'm familiar, because you know I'm a New Yorker like you. And
yes.
In your book, you talk about people like Charlie Rangel, you know,
yes.
who walked away and you were involved with the NAACP. You weren't happy with Charlie Rangel, who, by the way, folks, was a former congressman of New York for many years. My opinion, many years. He should be where the other Democratic leader is now, Sheldon Silver, because same club, same party,
right?
Same Democratic crew.
Same thing. No improvement. You know, when Charlie Rangel, he was my congressman. We had 47% impoverishment rate, but yet and still, every time he ran as the champion of the family. But they did not promote black families to be united. Black families used to be the strength of the black community. They wanted victims, and that's what I realized. They preached hatred, and I said, I cannot serve God and be a faithful member of clubs that tell you to hate people who have done nothing to you. So I was a member of like 4 clubs because anything I do, I want to know everything I can about it.
Right.
But I had my fill when they commanded us to go to a church in Harlem where Hillary Clinton, when she was running for the Senate, she was the morning worship speaker. And after she finished whatever she said, the pastor got up there and said, Hillary Clinton is the Moses for black people.
Oh, my God.
I almost threw up, and I had to run out of that church, and I was finished.
You know,
because black people don't need a Hillary Clinton to deliver them from what? That was too insulting for me to tolerate any more of that.
Well, you do mention that, by the way, folks, Barbara from Harlem happens to be a minister. She's people.
Yes, I am.
So, and I think you wear the Star of David also?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yes.
I wear Star of David and I wear my cross.
Of course, I know. I see that. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what can I say except God bless you? You know. So.
Amen.
Amen is right. Now, Charlie Rangel, really ripped off a lot of people.
Yes.
You know, the money that he was given was supposed to be for people that needed it, who needed homes. And he put that money in his pocket. We all know that. And, well, because he was a congressman, like most congressmen, no matter who they are, whatever nationality, religion, they get caught. But they also have that little protection. And I'll tell you, we're just, I'm trying to think of, besides Charlie Rangel, I mentioned it before, from your club. Oh, do you remember the Democratic club that was run by David Dinkins?
Yes. I was a member of four of them. David Dinkins would even come to Charlie Rangel's club.
Wow.
Those things didn't sit well with me. You know, there was what do they call it? A good guys little club between Perkins and Dinkins and Charlie Rangel. Several others were members of this special little group of politicians. Well, even when Dinkins ran for the mayor, I slipped behind everybody, and I worked on Rudy Giuliani's campaign. Even being a member of the Democratic clubs that I was a member of, because I knew within my heart that he would make a better mayor than David Dinkins. You know, and when I would go to some of the fundraising events, I do like this and hide my face because I didn't want my fellow Democratic club members to see me. But I worked on his campaign. And I was very proud of that because I got to the point where what's best for my country, not what is everybody else doing? What is everybody else saying? What's best for my country? And I knew that Giuliani would be a better mayor for New York City than David Dinkins would be.
Did you work on Rudy Giuliani's campaign the first time when he lost?
Yes, I did.
Right.
Yes, I did. He would come up to Harlem.
Yeah.
And he would come up to Harlem, meet with the people, meet with some of the leaders there. We even gave an event at at one of the restaurants for him and his wife. Well, his wife at that time, she was present. And yes, but he would come up to Harlem every time Dr. Fields called him. Yes.
Wow. Right. What was that? Sylvia's, the restaurant?
No, it was a waffle. What was it? Chicken and Waffle House.
Oh, okay.
It's no longer there. And even after he won the first time, he came up to one of the churches in Harlem to give a speech. Right after he gave that speech, the parishioners demanded that pastor leave. That pastor had to leave that church. Right there on 7th Avenue. Yes.
Wow. You know,
yes.
you talk about something interesting that you talk about racism, but I know, what do you think about, and I know because I have to say this, of white people telling you that you're suffering prejudice? And you talk particularly, and you know, I had to laugh because she says some white lady, you and your daughter, because by the way, it's nice that you and your daughter are together and you're in business together.
Yes.
And you're like sisters. So you were at a business meeting and you think you and your daughter, the only black people there, and you said you spotted this old lady, white hair old lady, and she went over to you, and right away, she's telling you what you're going through as a black person in America, and you straighten her out. Please tell the audience what you told her.
I do that all of the time. When they come over to me with that because they see that we're not that many of us there, I tell them, I say, listen, I'm black, you're white. If anyone knows about racism, it's me. I am the expert, so you listen to me. There's nothing you can teach me about it because you are not black. Right. They get the message and they go away.
You know what's sad? They're intellectually stupid because it's so obvious that they're patronizing you, right?
Yes.
So that's an insult.
It's highly insulting because I tell them also, I don't need a nanny.
Right.
I don't want a nanny. You're not going to rescue me.
Right.
And you can't teach me about racism.
You
know, and some of them, I tell them, I said, I'm not in the mood for this.
Oh, good. I know.
So they get the message.
Yeah, because, you know, again, They think, or it's really, well, we know they're phony and they're fake, just like Hillary
Yes,
was.
they are phony.
Yeah, you
Yes.
talk about Hillary. She's godless. She's a liar, vile,
Yes.
filthy, and immoral. And I'm adding shallow in there into what you
Yes.
said. And she's really all of the above. And
Yes, she is.
And we were very lucky that she did not win the presidential
We
race.
were blessed.
We were blessed. People, well,
Blessed.
your prayers, and people like you, and me, of course, praying that because we know the real Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely.
So,
How, and my question has always been, she's always trying to play up to black people. How in the world can you be so in love and so concerned about black people when you admire someone like Margaret Sanger? Margaret Sanger considered black people weeds. Margaret Sanger was a eugenist. Margaret Sanger was a racist, period. But yet and still, Hillary Clinton says she admired the tenacity of someone like Margaret Sanger.
right.
Why are so many people fooled by her and what she says? I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, I had Bob Woodson from 1776 at the group in Washington, D.C. He's also the CEO of the Woodson Center. And I'm sure you're familiar with him. He said, it's sad that black people are being hoodwinked and bamboozled
Yes.
by the Democratic Party.
Yes. Yes.
And
Completely, absolutely, and for decades.
correct. And they don't stop. And
No.
I noticed with Hillary, because you touched on all the things that she is,
Yes.
she had a technique, which a lot of them they can't do now because there's social media. Whatever the audience is and whatever they wanted to hear, they would promise them that, which you were in the business, you were in the Democratic world,
Yes.
And you'd go around, you say, wait a minute. In fact, one area she said, my grandfather is Jewish. If you remember, she said that at one meeting.
Yeah.
It's just whatever, and
Whatever.
is right. It's patronizing too. Is murder. I really
Absolutely. And there are no limits. That nothing is off base. Nothing is sacred with them. It's whatever it takes to win, to get that vote, and to stay in the office for that power and that control and to make money. Period.
money.
It's not about the general welfare of anybody except them.
The Democrats have been running the country for many years, Congress, and especially places like New York. Nothing's
Yes.
changed. Nothing's changed. Nothing.
No.
Nothing. It didn't get better. So you got a guy like Joe Biden promising what to do, and one of the first questions that I would ask him, can you tell us in your 48 years in Washington, just name one thing that you've done for the country?
Nothing. He would come up blank.
Yes.
That's why when a few people, and like Karl Rove and whatever, when Joe Biden gave a speech not too long ago, and they said it was fantastic. It was like 20-some-odd minutes. Well, how can it be fantastic when he doesn't even mention anything he's accomplished?
That's correct.
You want to give him accolades, I guess, because he lasted 20 minutes. But
Yes.
we need more than that for America. We need someone who can tell us, what's your service delivery history? What have you done in 48 years besides get rich, make your son rich, and make your family rich?
Right.
Or incarcerate black people or people of color with that 1994 crime bill. What else have you done? Nothing.
That's right. That's right. Except, he did the embarrassing thing that old white lady did to you in the white hair. He does that all around. He addresses African Americans differently,
Yes.
And I don't understand. That's why I say they're intellectually stupid because don't they? You have to see what they're doing. So he tries to, which he thinks is the street language, right?
I know.
That's what he thinks. So that actually tells the people what he's thinking of you.
He's a racist because he has very low expectations of black people.
I know.
That is very insulting. Like when he says, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, and blacks are not diverse, and all of this. I mean, those are insults. Insults. That's what they are. And that shows who he is. See, people like him have been playing that race card for so long that now that he's a little sick, it just keeps bubbling out.
Yeah.
It keeps flowing. And a lot of it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, well, it doesn't. And my guest is Barbara from Harlem. Her book is Escaping Racism of Low Expectations. Folks, you have to buy this book. It really tells it like it is. It tells you Barbara from Harlem's story, and it's an interesting story. What point in your life, because I know you had some issues, which most of us go through in life, where I have to say, where you sort of like found God and became a minister. How did that come about, Barbara from Harlem?
Well, to be honest with you, my mother and my grandmother in particular introduced me to God at a very young age. And then when we would go to Florida at Bethel AME Church, the pastor emphasized love thy neighbor, love thy neighbor. So I have to thank my mother and my grandmother in particular for introducing me to God. So when I went to these clubs and I hear people talk, something would bother me inside that didn't sit right. These clubs telling me to hate white people for what? God made them just like he made me. And it just didn't sit well with me. So all of these funny feelings and conflicts, because I was introduced to God, caused me to really start thinking very deeply about what was being said, what was I involved with, and did it meet with the standards that God has for us to love thy neighbor.
You know,
and most of the time I could say, no, it did not. Because it was trying to tell me that slavery, white men, and the white people now were responsible for enslaving my people. But the bottom line is, we go to church and we say God is good, and someone will say all the time.
Right.
So the question is, was God good during slavery, or did he fall asleep? You know, how can you love a God that allows something like that if you're going to be talking about you should hate the people who may have been related to some of the people? It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And see, when I ask Christians, was God asleep or was he awake? They usually stop speaking to me. I've had one, after 2 years of not speaking to me, come back and say, you know what, you have a very good point. God was awake during slavery. And then I relate in my book the story of Joseph. Joseph told his brothers, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And see, all of this was provoked because my Uncle Richie one day said to me, he said, you know what, thank God for slavery. I said, Uncle Richie, what do you mean? Anyway, I would go up to the Bronx to visit him, and he finally explained it to me. In other words, he said, if it hadn't been for slavery, where would we be? He said, you know, my mother, who was my great-grandmother, he said she was in the pea field, always had her book, her Bible rather, while she was picking peas and thanking God for slavery.
You know,
that woke me up. And that goes with my Christianity. I can't hate people and say I love God. Because God was awake, he allowed it. But what man meant for evil, God meant for good. And I'm so thankful to God that I am black and born in America.
So we got to say, Barbara, the minister from Harlem.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, what you are. You preach the gospel.
Yes.
You know, we're talking about slavery, and we're talking about politics, Democrats and Republicans.
Yes.
And the question is, and why do majority of black people support a party that actually invented slavery to a degree? Why do we?
They did.
Yes, and why? You know, it's a big. It's to me it was always a big question because the Ku Klux Klan were senators and sheriffs,
yes,
Democrats from down from
Yes.
down the way, you know?
Absolutely. And this whole Civil War, not only was it to keep the colonies and the Union together, but it was also to stop the spread of slavery. That's why the Republican Party was formed,
Right.
because the Democrats wanted all of the states to have slaves. That's what that whole Civil War was. All of those lives were lost. And thank God we won, because the Democrats didn't win. The Democrats play the race card, but when we look into their history, they are the racists.
Right.
How long did it take them to get senators and congressmen from the Democratic Party into Washington? The Republican Party had them there in the 1870s.
Yeah.
Had blacks, but the Democratic Party did not.
Wow.
The Democratic Party in their early history didn't vote for lynching to be considered a crime.
Mm.
They have a horrible history when it comes to racism. That's why they call people what they actually are. They are the racists. They are the ones who wanted slavery to continue. They are the ones who are willing to die so that they could have every state in the Union have slaves. They are the ones, not the Republican Party.
Barbara from Harlem, you have to give them credit, terrible type of credit, because they were able to reverse it. They were able to switch it around. Where
Yes, they did.
People actually, are you a Republican? I'm not, by the way, I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. But so, because they say, so what if I'm a Republican? Well, why would you want to be a Republican? Because Republicans are racist.
Right.
And Abraham Lincoln was a Republican.
Yes, he was.
So,
Yes, he was.
It is,
And that was one of the reasons why they started the Republican Party, because the abolitionists and the Whigs, they were against slavery.
that's right. That was a party, by the way, folks. She knows the history. The Whigs was the political party in those days.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Oh, yes. Yes. But the Democrats have played that race card. The Democrats have been singing the same song for decades.
Imagine that.
And the Democrat. And another thing, we are at a disadvantage in a way, because the Democrats preached in the black community that black women didn't need a daddy for their babies. This way they could create another herd of victims. We have over 73% of black children born without a father. But they promised them, oh, we'll take care of your housing. We'll take care of this. We'll take care of that. And look what's happened to the black family. They have practically destroyed it. When we have most of the children born without a father.
We're in our third generation of that. I think you know that.
Yes.
Our third generation of young kids that don't know who their father is.
I know.
Who don't, So what have the Democrats? I blame them for that. I mean, if you could blame someone,
Yes.
they're the ones that were supposed to make it better for everyone.
Right.
So, it's and yet they, like I said, they play the race card. But
they play the race card and they lie. They are exceptionally good liars. As they breathe, they lie.
It's just amazing. But anyway,
it's horrible.
Democrats was the party of pretty much, because when I was a young kid in Lower East Side, it was the Democratic Party. And if you wanted anything, you had to go to the Democratic Clubhouse, even uptown, downtown, wherever the Democratic Party was, and you'd have to do something for them, usually make a donation, or whatever. When I was working on Rudy Giuliani's campaign, I know we were doing some background on David Dinkins, because he was the opponent, which is normal in politics, which you know.
Right.
And this is what we found in the David Dinkins Democratic Party, where he had his, his group in that same building, which was owned by the Democratic Party. One floor had gambling. Mm-hmm. One floor had prostitution. His floor had the Democratic Party in the same building.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Well, we did let Rudy know that. Because we're looking for different things that we could utilize, when you're running an office, which you know, and something like that. But he was reluctant. He was reluctant on a few other things, Barbara from Harlem. Dead people were voting twice for David Dinkins. At first,
I believe it. I believe it.
How I know is because working on this campaign with two other retired detectives that I worked with, we took pictures with the old Polaroid camera, right, of gravestones when people died, right? And then we went to the Board of Health and get copies of their death certificates, right?
Right.
And then we go to the Board of Election. They were dead over 10 years, 15 years, maybe 20, and they voted twice.
I believe it.
So we went to Rudy's office in New York, and we laid it on the boardroom table, and he says, hey, guys, I know it, but if I make an issue of it, they'll call me a racist.
Yeah.
So
that's their favorite word.
And he said, they'll call me a racist. And we were looking at right and wrong. We were saying, yeah, but Rudy, that's wrong. You really won, or maybe you had more votes if you didn't win, because we got fraud right in our face with the information. He said,
wow.
He said, I'll win next time, and he did. And he did the second time.
Yes.
With your help.
Well, listen, it was a pleasure. Like I said, I had to hide my face half the time. But I was able, he probably it doesn't even remember me, but I went to his victory party at Gracie Mansion.
Oh, yes.
But we worked and brought him up there to Harlem, and he was willing to come up there. See, he's one of the few Republicans that was brave enough to come up to Harlem. A lot of them just don't even bother.
Yep.
A lot of them just give it up to the Democrats because they think that they can't make any difference. The only Republicans I know of ever done that was Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie in New Jersey.
Yeah, interesting.
Because I even attended one of his meetings that he had at a church in Paterson, New Jersey. But more Republicans need to do that. They don't need to be giving up the inner city to the Democrats. I don't think that they should do that. Well, because one or two. Listen, I walk around in Harlem all the time with my Trump hat on. And even now I have a mask that has Trump. Where's my mask? In my purse. This is my hat that I wear.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yes.
And I have a mask that says Trump. And let me tell you, a lot of people smile at me. Let me get in front of them in line, say hello to me. One man recently, I wanted to buy a piece of meat. I said, oh, this is too expensive. You know what he did? And he works in the store. He went in the back, changed the price to $1.49 a pound.
Wow.
From $2.99 to $1.49.
That's pretty good.
And I walk around with that hat all the time. So there are a lot of people in our communities that are just afraid. They're afraid to do anything different or to let anyone know. But the Republicans should not concede inner city America to the Democrats.
I know. Well, that's what we call the silent majority. Because
that's true.
Yeah, people are afraid to. See, I was going to ask you that, but you said you walk around Harlem and you
yes,
with wearing the
my hat and
Trump
then the
stuff.
mask that has Trump on it.
Yeah. You know what you have to worry about when you do that? You got to worry the white people.
Well,
you got to worry about Antifa. You got to worry about Antifa and Black Lives Matter, the Black Lives Matter group.
But they don't know who's carrying in Harlem, so they're kind of quiet in Harlem.
I know that. That's exactly right.
They don't
you know something?
Who's packing.
I know. That's good.
Because this is a violent neighborhood.
Well, speaking of packing, you talk about Jim Crow. You and your daughter confronted Ku Klux Klan, and folks, Barbara from Harlem had a shootout. She had a shootout. Barbara, you were shot several times.
Yes.
Thank God, which I'm going to quote you, thank God for the Second Amendment, because you were packing.
Yes,
I was. You went and got your gun from your car.
I had to go to the car even after he shot me.
Right.
And if I didn't make it, he would have killed my brother because my brother ended up losing a kidney.
Oh, boy.
But as soon as he shot my brother said, "Sis, get your gun." He shot me. So when the guy heard that, when the KKK heard that, he shot me. But I still made it to the car, got my gun, and I shot him. Then he shot me again, and I shot him again. Yes.
Folks.
So I appreciate that Second Amendment because my daughter was there. My 2 daughters and my 3 sons were on site. They were in elementary school when this happened.
Oh, boy. Wow.
But one thing about it, see, people like that are really cowards. My mother drove up, and I thought my mother had the shotgun in the trunk. And I'm very good with a shotgun. So, well, because I had a 22 at that time with hollow points, and he was over 10 feet away. But I was able to stop him. But then when I told my mother, I said, "Give me the shotgun."
He must have ran.
And when he heard me yelling for that shotgun, he gave up. He said, "I give."
Wow. See
so that ended that.
And they want to take away our Second Amendment rights. You imagine that? They mean the Democrats.
Armed guards. No, they're all crazy. They hate our Constitution.
They do.
See, our Constitution wasn't made for an immoral or irreligious people. Our second president, John Adams, said the Constitution was made solely for immoral and religious people. And these people have abandoned God. They hate God. They hate the founding of this country. And they want to do everything that they can to strip the people of any kind of rights, civil rights, any kind of rights, so that they can have total control over us. They don't need to be serving because they're unfit to serve the American people.
Right. I like what you say. If you don't like it, get the hell out.
Get out.
Get out. If you.
That's right.
Oh, my God. It's so.
They're horrible.
How did we lose? In our schools, we lost. Aside from pledging our flag, we lost prayer in the school.
Yes, we did.
How did? And it bothers me, and I'm not a minister.
It bothers me also.
Yes, but
we went to sleep on the job. Sometimes we try to be too nice. Well, maybe, if it offends people, then they shouldn't be in this country. They shouldn't even be in the schools. Get out.
Yeah, right.
But we became too complacent. And sometimes I think people think, well, if we give them this, maybe they'll be quiet. That's a bad philosophy.
Very good.
You give them a little inch, they take 20 miles. And we have to just call it like it is. We have evil among us. Yeah. We have people who are not children of God. We have people who are children of darkness. And they want to put darkness all over America because America was founded on Judeo-Christian values and principles and beliefs.
And that's why you wear the crucifix and the Star of David.
Yes, sir. It's a Star of David.
Star of David. I see it from you. Yeah, very interesting.
That's
yes,
right.
Yeah. Well, Judeo-Christian is what we seem to lose. I hate to say that. It's just.
I know. But the first Christians were Jewish.
Right.
That's why I wear that Star of David.
Well, Jesus was a Jew, right? Wasn't Jesus a Jew?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
And you'll see most of these Antifa and all of these people, BLM and all of them, they don't want to acknowledge that. They don't even want to acknowledge God.
What's your interpretation of Black Lives Matter? The group
it's
Black
Marxist.
Lives Matter.
It's Marxist, it's ungodly, and it has no place in America, period.
Wow.
And they're using black people as little foot soldiers to do a lot of their dirty work. They're trying to dismantle this country. See, they don't want to leave it because they wouldn't live as good as any other place as they live here.
Correct.
But they hate the founding of this country. They want to, what do they want to do? Destroy the nuclear family? That is not even logical.
Nothing they do.
They don't even make any sense.
They're
from the dark side of hell. Period.
And then they got these, aside from Black Lives Matter, they got these white,
crazy,
affluent Antifa kids. They don't come from the housing projects,
No, they don't.
And yet, they're destroying our country as well.
Yes.
You know, knocking down statues. It's just, you know, destroying the. I don't know how. Truthfully, my background is mostly law enforcement. It's like you said, being a minister, certain things bother you. Being in former law enforcement, it's so hard to see the abuse that our law enforcement has to accept in every single Democratic city.
That's right.
Democratic city. I just
Absolutely.
that's. I mean, right there alone, folks. That's the hand right now on the wall. Where we have these are nice protests. These are riots.
No, they're not.
These are riots. How do you do a protest at? Who gets a permit to do a protest at 3 a.m, right?
You know, these people think that they can say anything to us and we'll be stupid enough to digest it. I just hope the American people will awaken from their slumber. Stop thinking about being loyal to a party. Be loyal, number one, to God, number two, to your country.
Right.
The Democrats have not earned the support of any thinking, sane, or moral American. If you can call destruction of property peaceful, then there's something wrong with you, or you think we're stupid enough to believe it. These people have no right tearing up the statues because they didn't put their money in from their pockets to erect it.
Right.
And for these Democratic mayors not to hold them accountable or tie the hands of our law enforcement people, it's so wrong. And I hope the American people see just how devastating and destructive people like de Blasio are.
Right.
Other mayors, Lightfoot. They don't care about the damage to human lives and human property.
Well,
and they are undeserving of one sane, moral person getting their vote.
Well, we're talking about Mayor Lightfoot of Chicago. Am I correct?
She's horrible.
Yes, and of course, de Blasio. This is now the rotten apple under him.
Yes, it is.
Exactly what he did. He destroyed everything that Rudy Giuliani, and by the way, Bloomberg continued. Bloomberg continued. That was a smart move on his part. He didn't change anything. So that's
right.
So it was. We had favorable times during Bloomberg as well. Now, I don't know. I don't know how many years it's going to take us to get back where we were.
I know.
Barbara from Harlem. Barbara from Harlem, I want to thank you for being my guest. All right.
Yes, and I would like to
show your book. I want you to do that. Show the books. Show your book to the folks.
Escaping the Racism of Low Expectations. And I appreciate everyone just going out, getting a copy. I think you'll find it very enjoyable.
They will. Well, listen, we found you enjoyable. You know?
Well, thank you.
Barbara,
and I found this enjoyable.
Oh, thank you, Barbara. Thank you. It's an old saying, you know, but keep up the good work and keep up doing God's good work as well. All right.
Thank you so very much. And it's really been my pleasure. And I really appreciate this opportunity. And, you know, by the grace of God, we'll all continue what we're doing because what you're doing is very important, too, because the people really need to have something to think about and start remembering how great this country is and how some of these Democrats have done so much with their lawless nature to try to just undermine everything. But by the grace of God, we will win.
So how do we leave off by saying re-elect Donald Trump?
Absolutely. Trump 2020 all the way.
We
have God back in the White House.
Absolutely.
We have a wonderful vice president, Secretary of State, Dr. Ben Carson. Thank God for these people who are strong and who believe in the founding and the beauty of this country.
Right. Barbara from Harlem, thank you. God bless you. Escaping the racism of low expectations. Folks, good night, Barbara. Thank you.
God bless everybody.
God bless
Love
everybody.
You. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Okay, I'm going to take it a little break.